Welcome to another edition of Minot Talk here at the Dakota. It's Thursday at 9 a.m. I'm joined by District 5 Representative and Minot School Board member, Scott Louser. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on this snowy spring day.
Yes.
Spring break in Minot.
We got North Dakota again. I was excited because I thought we were getting warm weather, but I jinxed it all.
Well,
because I thought that.
We might get warm weather this afternoon.
Yeah. My wife went, and this is the second time this happened, so people are going to think like I'm derelict in my duties at home. But she shoveled the driveway, like, what was it, yesterday morning or something like that? I think it was yesterday morning. And I went on a walk, and she shoveled it. And by the time I got back, I'm like, it's kind of mostly melted, so I'm sorry about that.
You both got your exercise.
Yeah, we both got our exercise. It worked out. So, very good. Well, it is good to have you on. We want to talk about a couple things. First off, we'll keep it local here in Minot. I guess all of it's going to be mostly local, but keep it local here in Minot to Minot High. There have some changes going on with their M.
Right.
This came down because, and you know the history of it better than me, so you'll explain it better, but basically there's a block M that's been used for some of the stuff that actually is a little bit conflicting with Minot or Minnesota, University of Minnesota, and so there's some conflict that came up. Explain that.
Yeah, a few months ago, I brought it up at a board meeting that we have a lot of different M's.
Right, yeah.
And until it's pointed out, you probably don't notice it.
Yeah.
And so my understanding was that back when we started our hockey program, boys hockey at Minot High in the mid-'70s, there was allegedly permission granted to have the uniforms look like the Minnesota hockey team. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I've heard. But the fact is, we looked exactly like them for years, even when I was in high school.
Okay.
And so the question of that block M, is that our official secondary logo? The initial logo, the primary logo is a magician.
Okay.
So I brought that up and said, let's settle on something that's uniform. And while we're doing it, let's trademark the logo and then license it.
Yeah.
And I think it was the next month, maybe 2 months later, we got a letter, the superintendent got a letter from the University of Minnesota saying, stop doing that.
Yeah.
And they're defending their trademark. I get it.
Right, yep.
So after that, I went into the high school and I took some pictures and I did a video on all of the different M's that I could find that we're using. And there's variations of the Minnesota M, but I would say there was probably legitimately a dozen different ones that we're using.
Interesting.
And I just wanted to brand our school. We've got all of our kids in one school now, 9 through 12 at Magic City.
Yeah.
Minot North is doing a fantastic job. Now they're new, but they're branded very well.
Right, yep.
Why do we have all these multiple M's? And so after getting the letter, we've got a survey ready to go. It's going to go out next week. It's going to ask the question. We're going to ask, do you work for the school system? Did you go to Minot High?
Yeah.
Where do you live? But what do you want to see? And we're going to give 3 options.
Okay. So you get 3 options for that. But yeah, you mentioned almost a dozen. Obviously, we see an M on your shirt with the logo, and then you have a bunch of them right here. I love it. So you brought this up at a board meeting, and then coincidentally, my University of Minnesota reached out. How'd that timing work?
Well, it seems coincidental. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if somebody picked up or sent it to them. Right, I certainly didn't reach out. I know our board didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said your colors. My understanding is they said if you could use that M but change your colors.
Okay. Oh,
because it's so close. It's maroon and yellow is really what they are. We're maroon and gold, but there's no definition of gold, which we're also going to ask in the survey.
Okay.
Do you want yellow or do you want Vegas gold?
Right, yeah.
We're using both. So let's get us branded properly.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, gold is like one of the hardest colors to identify too when you're not looking at pure gold. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, there's a lot of assets that the Minot High has when it comes to this. It's going to be probably a pretty extensive process to get it changed out. How long do you estimate that taking?
We're asking if they would agree to let us phase over 5 years.
Okay.
And I think they will. I mean, we're not... There's really, when you go out to a retailer and you buy a maroon shirt with a yellow M, it's Minnesota. They're getting that. They're getting that. They license that, and so they're getting a royalty. And then that casual fan is wearing that to an event.
Right. Yep.
So, I guess they stand to lose a little bit in royalties as this phase out happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they understand this is an extensive process. So
Right,
I don't see any tension between them. We're just making a decision.
Yeah, no, that's good. So that's kind of the bigger picture. Talk more about maybe for Minot High what this does. You already mentioned Minot North, where they kind of have a consolidated brand. Obviously, it's a newer one. This is probably a really good step for Minot High as far as consolidating the brand and make it more unified there.
Yeah. I know you've got some pictures I took this morning, so we're going to look at something maybe a little snowy. But if you sit in the football stadium at Minot High at Dwayne Carlson, that's the big M that used to be on the M building downtown.
Okay, gotcha.
That one is different with the middle of the M going all the way down to the bottom.
Okay, I see.
So that's one option that we'd have. But as you sit there, and again, this was taken from outside the stadium.
Yeah.
The Magician logo is on the left side of the scoreboard, and the M in question is on the right side, and all three of them are different.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Just sitting in the stadium looking, you've got three.
That's
and when
crazy.
you walk into the stadium, there's one from, I think, probably the 70s. That one, that's different too.
Wow.
That one's orange.
Yeah.
So
right there you have 4 options to choose from.
Yeah. And I've got a couple here. I think I know what we're going to ask. So this is the varsity letter M that's in question. And this and one of the things I brought up, I called around the state and I asked a lot of different school districts, what do you give when a kid letters?
Okay.
In fact, what does it mean to letter?
Yeah.
To letter goes back to the late 1800s, and the Harvard University was the first to do this, and they gave a patch, an H patch,
Gotcha.
to put on your chest, on your sweater.
Okay.
They didn't have jackets back then. And that became the term lettering for varsity. And so that's been adopted by schools all across the country. We know kids don't wear jackets. They don't wear Letterman's jackets anymore.
Right.
And many of them don't wear jackets at all.
Yep.
So what are we giving them as a recognition for when they letter? For years, the girls at Minot High had this version, which looks like a Michigan M.
Yep. It does.
And so we had, the boys and the girls, different letters for years.
Yep.
The girls went to the block M now. But I asked, called around the state, Bismarck Public Schools doesn't even give a letter. So Century, Bismarck High, and Legacy, they get a plaque.
Okay.
And it's inscripted with their accomplishment and a team photo.
Oh,
so if you're on the cross country team, it's your. West Fargo gives a shield as their patch, and it says West Fargo inside the shield, but it's not an F or a WF.
Mm-hmm.
South Prairie's letter is 2 letters. It's a SP.
Okay, gotcha. So it's all very inconsistent.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, if we're going to give a patch, could it be the Magician?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that
and
makes
put
sense.
that on the jacket.
Right. Yep.
South Prairie, it was kind of interesting. Their superintendent told me their kids don't put their letter on their jacket; they put it on their backpack, and that's what they carry to events.
That's fair.
I'd never heard of that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty unique. But as I went through this, I found out that we're also giving this is for music.
Yep.
And we're doing this for drama.
Okay. Gotcha.
And we also have, and I've got one for speech here that's the same as music. We also have achievement patches at Minot.
That is the old Montreal
Expos. Yeah, exactly. The old Vistas. That's what they wore a long time ago. But this is for achievement at school outside of a varsity letter. It's just a different M.
Right.
To me, they're all one school, whether you're in sports or you're in co-curricular achievement. So we've got an option here. This is Minot North.
Okay.
And so a version of that for Minot High could be this, and that'll be one of the questions.
I see. Yeah.
So this would be one on the survey. The big M on the football field would be one. And then the M that's already being used that nobody really knows inside the logo. Yeah. Those would be the 3 options to pick from.
Do you have any preferences yet? You'll have
this one's easiest because it's in there.
That's fair.
I think the most recognizable one, if you're in the public, it would probably be the big M at the football field.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the new one that looks like Minot North. So do we want to be kind of similar but different?
Yeah.
Or do we want to be really different from North?
Right.
And we're going to ask the public. We'll get that answer.
So because that last deal is kind of like almost leads into a bigger question of right now the two schools help each other out a lot, right? But eventually, while there should be always friendship and shake hands and help each other out, but when you're talking about some of the sports and stuff like that, you kind of want it to be rivals, right? Eventually, is that kind of where that leads to?
Well, you're seeing that we're not the first to do this, to have two high schools. Bismarck has done this. They've now, in recent times, they added Legacy.
Right.
And so they've gone through this. West Fargo is growing quickly. They added Cheyenne.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now Horace is, potentially our second round matchup for the girls at state basketball.
I see.
They won state last year.
Okay.
West Fargo Horace.
Yeah.
You ask a lot of people, tell me about West Fargo Horace. They don't know. They're so new.
I see.
So there's a natural rivalry that's created. You're right. And we want that healthy rivalry.
Yeah.
But this is Minot Public Schools. These are Minot kids. We share services. If there's a class that's offered at Minot High and there's not enough kids at Minot North that are enrolled in that same class, we'll bring them to Minot High for that hour.
Makes sense.
We have to do that, and that's going to shake itself out over the coming years.
Yeah. So just having the difference between the gold versus the blue, probably enough of a differentiation.
Well, and you bring up gold.
Yeah, we did.
So I brought this up before I was on the school board. Specifically, Minot North's colors are related to the Air Force Base. They're navy and silver.
Yeah.
It's a metallic silver.
Right.
I think Minot High should be the metallic gold.
Okay.
So that's my preference. I remember saying, we've heard the term steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
I say gold sharpens silver, silver sharpens gold.
Yeah, that's
it's
fun.
It's a fun way to say it. I know it's not accurate. But
right. Because that's another thing. We went and talked about the different logos, but there's also several different colors of gold that you displayed throughout those logos. You have the bright, maybe true, more gold yellow, and then you have that tan, which is the not as fun color in my opinion. But that's because I'm a Washington Husky fan, and they used to use the tan, and then they switched, and they use something that's a little more gold now.
So Washington Huskies football uniforms are brilliant in my opinion.
Okay.
That color gold, and I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I'm kind of related to that gold.
Yep.
When they choose to wear gold helmets, I think that looks awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine the Minot football team this isn't my decision, but the Minot football players wearing gold pants, gold helmets with the Magician logo on it.
Yeah.
I would like to see that Magician logo everywhere because the M is secondary. So on every uniform, some of them, like the wrestling mat we have at Minot High right now is a big M.
Okay.
Their uniforms are M.
Okay.
So those things have to phase out.
Right. Yep.
And of course, that's budget related. We can't just flip a switch and spend the money. So it's going to take time. But my preference would be pick what we have, license it, trademark it, then license it, and put it on everything.
Could this possibly, and I don't know this part, it seems like there's a lot of secondary market for this. If it gets licensed and stuff like that, does this become maybe a small revenue stream for the school too?
Hope so. I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Very interesting.
It's fun. I mean, I think, you look at something like that comes out and think, and we've been through this in North Dakota before, we're changing a logo or changing something, and everybody, Dickinson actually did it last year. Dickinson went from the Midgets to the Mavericks. And in the end, everybody's rallying around the Mavericks in Dickinson.
Yep.
This had potential up front to be contentious, but I think once people understood what we were doing, they're like, okay, let's be Minot.
Yeah.
Let's not even look like Minnesota.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that's good. You see it, I think it was a trend, and maybe it still is a little bit, but you see it a lot with high school teams where they're, and maybe even younger teams than that, where they're going and stealing branding from NFL teams or college teams, and it's cool or whatever, but it's kind of like, I seen that W somewhere else and I liked it there better, Whereas this makes it where it's like, no, that's the Minnesota M and this is Minot High M, and I like this M because it's Minot High,
Yeah, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, how many people had approached me and said, how can Minnesota own a letter?
Okay,
well, they've got a version of an M that they've been granted a trademark.
Right.
Michigan has a different M. Missouri has a different M. Nebraska has one.
Yeah.
Houston doesn't have an H. They're a UH.
Okay.
So, if you really look, and I'd mentioned Notre Dame, they have the interlocking ND.
Yeah, right.
But they have the Fighting Irish guy.
Yeah.
And now they're using variations of the Fighting Irish guy for the sport. So
Yep.
one's carrying a football, one's dribbling a basketball, one has a hockey stick.
Very good. Yeah. Right. And it comes down to, again, maybe they don't own it. It's trademarked and all that. So in the way they do own it, but there's that brand recognition that comes to it. And when the first thing that's recognized is, oh, you must be University of Minnesota fan. And it's like, no, I'm a Minot High fan. Like,
You see, be careful to ask people that if they're UND hockey fans wearing what they think is Minot High, and you say, you're wearing a Minnesota M. No, it's Minot. So
Right, yeah.
we can brand for ourselves. And
for sure.
I really want that school spirit, and from freshman through senior, and even the younger kids that are going to go to Minot High, that's their logo and their M.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting. Somebody asks, what's the history of the magician? Do you know? Great plan to trademark it.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the history. My understanding is that it was either a student or an art teacher years ago, prior to the 50s, that designed, and it was just picked up by the school.
That's neat.
And just used for over 50 years.
Wow.
Great question, and I don't know if we have any documentation in the archives to say when it started.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Very good. No, that's an interesting thing. Something we might have to look into.
I want to mention one thing. I admit this M is near and dear to me.
Okay.
I had an injury when I was 5 years old in the house that my parents had just built.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty bad injury. I broke my jaw. Oh. And the basketball coach at Minot High came to the hospital and gave me one of these. He knew I was a big fan.
Gotcha.
And I got a team picture. But that M I got when I was 5 years old. I could not wait to really earn one my sophomore year. I don't want to see it go. I mean, this has history for me. Mm-hmm. But the magician has more history to me. That's more important.
Have you heard, on that note, from alumni and stuff like that? And they're probably not as much of a fan of this situation, or?
Until they hear the whole story.
Okay.
I've had people say, I'm upset. How could this happen?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, okay, that makes sense. I'm more Minot High than I am bound to ultimately what it is the letter patch.
Yeah, right.
It's the patch that we give varsity athletes because we're using these other ones.
Yep.
And so I think everybody understands it. And the concern initially was, do we have to get rid of the magician?
Okay.
Because the initial story sounded like that.
I see.
What I've given you here is not even all of them. There's more. So
that's actually crazy.
I think everybody, when they understand the story, will kind of rally behind this. Very
good. Very good. Very interesting. Well, there's some other news that came out recently. You just been part of the news cycle. I guess it's your life, where you made a decision on what you're going to do over in District 5 in the representative spot.
Yeah, yesterday I announced that I'm going to run for re-election in District 5 House. Randy Burkhardt is our current senator, and Randy has decided to retire. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that decision, my running mate, Jay Fisher, and he told me, I guess, initially that he wanted to run for the Senate, so that vacated a seat in the House. And I had some things I wanted to work out with my business. And the legislature, although I'm guilty of saying this, not guilty, it's accurate, we are a part-time body, 80 days every 2 years. In the interim, it's a lot of work if you make it that way. Yeah. And it's somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week.
Wow.
And I wanted to square that with my business and with my daughters. And I had the most support I had was from my kids.
Okay.
And they said, absolutely do it. So I made the announcement yesterday, I'll run for re-election.
That's pretty exciting. Obviously, some change over in District 5. Do you plan to have a running mate?
I hope so. And that's where this went, because I've talked to some people that have expressed interest over the years. Timing wasn't right for them, whether it's family or work.
Yeah.
But to a person, everybody has said, tell me about the time commitment.
Right.
And I want to tell them exactly what it is. Now, you can not just show up and vote during session, not introduce many bills, not really take anything on.
Right.
In the interim, you can go to your interim committees and that's it. Or you can really work on issues, and I'm trying to do that.
Right.
And just this week, the governor had appointed a senator and myself to a task force on boards and commissions.
Okay.
Not very sexy, but we're analyzing 173 boards and commissions in North Dakota, every one of them.
Right.
We've got 40 left.
Okay.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
And somebody representing a given board or commission comes to this task force and tries to justify their existence. And we're looking at elimination, consolidation, reduction, or leave as is on 173 boards.
So 173 boards. We're talking about directly state boards. There's a lot of boards and commissions throughout the state, but this is directly state boards. This isn't county. This isn't right. This is just state boards, right?
Yep, just state boards. Some of them are mandated by federal law, but this is what we have, what you call jurisdiction over. And some of them are large and very visible, and some of them you may never have heard of because it was a federal act that put it in place in the 80s.
Yep.
And so we have to research and say, if we get rid of, not even get rid of the board, if we reduce the size, some of them say you need 20% membership from this sector.
Okay.
But you need to have 16 people from,
I see. Yep.
They're all different.
Right.
And the governor said, go fix it.
Yeah. Well,
and I think he did that in part because when he became governor, he was tasked with appointing people to all these boards.
Right.
And it was a lot. So that's just one example.
Yeah, a lot of work that it takes.
It can be.
Yep. What are some of the, maybe eventually down the road we'll have a full-on candidate interview, but what are some of the issues or reasons why you decided to run specifically?
I can name maybe 4 now, and I can name another 6 or 7 that I think over time, my intention is to get a bill draft prepared to address a large issue, not just say we got a problem, but say address the issue with draft language, present it to my colleagues, put it out to the public. Just not many people do it this way. And then have debate before we get to the session. And see if I can build a coalition to solve a problem. So one would be continued property tax reform and relief. We have the $1,600 primary residence credit. We deliberately, this last session, made it not retroactive, but prorated, so that if you sold your house in the middle of the year, you could take your credit portion and the buyer could get the other portion. Prior, when it was $500, we were silent on whether that was transferable.
Okay.
So there were counties that were, not counties, but there were closing agents or offices, title companies that were allowing for the transfer of your $500 because we were silent on it in the bill.
I see.
So if you applied for it and got it and sold your house, you could take it to the next house.
Oh, wow.
This session, we said you can't do that specifically, but we're going to prorate.
I see.
The mistake that we made, and I tried to address this in 1176, but the mistake we made was there's no mechanism to verify, even though you may have applied, you may not have been approved for the credit yet.
Okay.
So if you close on July 1st of 2026, right now there's no mechanism for the title company to call and verify if the credit was approved.
Okay.
So it's kind of on a wish and a prayer. You each get $800.
I see.
I want to fix that.
Right.
I would like to see the mills for K-12 education bought out. That's the bill I had last session. But I don't believe we can go backwards on this credit. Because from a real estate perspective, many people escrow their payment. And if we give a credit and ultimately you get that back as a refund on your escrow, or you get a reduction in your house payment, and we take the credit away, your house payment is going to go up by $133 a month because the escrow company's short. They're going to increase another $133 on the premise that they're going to be short again the next year. If we took the credit away, house payments would go up $266 a month.
Wow. Wow.
And we can't do that. So we're in it now.
Right.
We either leave it where it is or increase it. And that's something I want to work with the governor on.
Right.
Do we increase it or do we give other relief to all sectors? That's one bill.
That's one bill. That's going to be a huge one. So you mentioned, though, buying out the mills of K through 12, so basically increasing the tax credit so that it would cover.
From the state perspective, it would be just increasing the money dedicated to property tax reduction.
Okay.
So what we do differently from this, what the state requires on K-12 education versus county and city, is the state mandates that every property is levied 60 mills for property tax, and those 60 mills go into a funding formula that is sent back to the school boards in what's called a per pupil payment.
Okay. Yep.
And so because the mills that are sent in, the value of the mills sent into the state are different all across North Dakota, the amount of money that the state kicks in for that per pupil payment, because that payment's the same for everybody, differs. And my contention is if we're mandating the mills and the Constitution says provide education, buy out the mills, drop everybody's property taxes by 60 mills,
Okay.
and then send that money back in the per pupil payment. That was my solution last time.
I see.
I understand why the governor wanted what he did. The only North Dakota residents got the property tax relief. My
Right.
bill would have given it to everybody,
Yeah.
out-of-state owners.
Right.
And I get it. We can do, if we can afford it, we can do both.
Yeah. Do you feel, and this is getting into the weeds because we're talking about priorities, but I'll ask this question. I probably asked it before. Do you feel like the step that was taken when people were asking for property tax reform at the time? We had Measure 4, we had all this stuff. What North Dakota citizens ended up getting was a $1,600 payment with a plan to go and increase it as things went on your primary residence. Do you feel like that was the, maybe not best step because there's variations of that, but a very proper step to take in order to go and reform, not just put a Band-Aid on property taxes, but actually go and begin to reform property taxes in North Dakota?
Well, I don't want to call it a competing, I had a complementary bill.
Yep.
And so to ask if I think when it was done, I got frustrated.
Yeah.
I'll admit it, because there's record of this.
Yep.
And then I spent my own money to go out and survey the public. I hired an out-of-state firm to survey, to ask questions about their feeling on property tax relief.
Yeah.
At that time, the overwhelming majority the sentiment was, let's see how this works.
Okay.
I think people were pretty happy with it, but there was two parts to that. It wasn't just 1,600 primary.
Yep.
There was also a cap on the political subdivision's ability to raise their budget
Right.
via property taxes was capped at 3%.
Yeah.
So what I thought was going to happen, and probably will in the future, is those entities that have the ability to levy fees and special assessments will shift that burden that way, maybe raise the water fee because they're capped on that portion of their budget.
Yeah.
But school districts can't do that.
Right.
So we have the mandated cap of 60 mils.
Yep.
Then we put a 3% cap on top of that.
Right.
So we recognized in the legislature that if a given school district's property values increased by 10%, let's just use that because it's easy.
Yep.
Property values went up by 10, you must levy 60 mils, but you can't increase by more than 3%.
Right.
So now you have to reduce the mills to get under the cap.
I see.
And we set money aside called gap funding. We put $35 million aside, and we said, school districts, if you find yourself in that situation, apply to the Department of Public Instruction. They'll give you the gap funding.
I see.
It was a complete guess. I don't know if $35 million was a lot or not enough.
Right. Yep.
We'll find out.
Yep. Interesting. So on the 3% cap, feedback on that? Have you heard that was about proper or maybe a little bit tight?
Well, it depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
So my bill did not apply the 3% cap, but originally I put the bill, I sent the bill out, what ultimately was 1168. I emailed that to all my colleagues in February, a year before the session. I had the 3% cap in.
Okay.
For very small political subdivisions that had a budget of under $2 million, they were not subject to the cap.
Okay.
Because a 3% change in their budget could mean that they don't have a snowplow.
Right.
So we did have some carve-outs for really small budgets, but that did not apply. 1176 applied the cap to everybody. So I don't know yet.
Okay. It's too early to tell.
I suspect that we're going to see the smaller groups come in and say we can't operate this way.
Yeah.
There's also a 3% cap on the building fund for schools. So I want to focus on that a little bit because I tried this in special session. We allow for 20 mils to be levied on your property tax for a building fund. And Minot's the only Class A school in the state that doesn't have one.
Okay.
20 mils on your property. That had to have been placed by the voters with a supermajority, 60%.
Okay.
Had to vote yes to tax themselves a building fund. So if the authority was 20 mils, but the school board was being conservative and only levied 6, they had the authority for 20, but they only needed 6. We capped that too. So now 3% on 6 mils is 6.18. You're raising 0.18 when you have a need for the money to fix a problem in a building.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that was unintended.
Right.
The voters voted themselves locally, and then we came in and said, no, you're capped.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There might need to be some carve outs for the cap for sure. Makes sense. One of the other issues that I saw come out from the release, and you can correct this if it's wrong, was something to do with healthcare as well.
Yeah.
So talk about that for a moment.
Okay. So we're going to see this again coming up in the spring. So there, I had mentioned the per pupil payment. So what happens is the state gives a little over $11,000 per kid that's in your school district, and the school district counts their kids in the fall, about the third week of when school starts, and then submits that to DPI, and that's how we get our funding.
Okay.
From that, a little over 80% of our budget in the Minot Public Schools is people, so salaries and benefits. We got our money, and we put out the contracts, and we say, here's everything that we've got. Here's what we can afford. And then the RFP for health insurance came back, 15% increase.
Yes.
So we are in the process of working with our provider we got the number down, and then we found some efficiencies, and we found some other things maybe in our contract we should have, with our consultant, maybe should have had some clawback on some money that wasn't used and some rebates. Bottom line is, when you have a 2.5%, that was the increase last session, 2.5% increase in the per pupil payment. And then the benefit side is an increase of 15%. And I've heard it in other districts over 20.
Wow.
And they can't get it down.
Yeah.
Minot, we were fortunate to decrease it, but you can't operate that way.
Right.
We're capped. We have a limited number of an increase from the state. Then we're capped again. And something we can't control comes in. So I'm working with some stakeholders in the state. I'm going to say a month away from being able to say what a solution is for that. But it's very real. And it's not just, hey, reduce your payment.
Right.
It's a negotiated strategy.
For sure. Yeah, definitely something that's affecting a lot of people. So pretty exciting. Running in District 5. Hope to have a running mate. And what I mean specifically by running mate, obviously there's going to be somebody else that runs, but on a ticket together with you. It'll be interesting to see how that builds. It's going to be an interesting election cycle. They always are, but over the past few years, they've been mounting in interest. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
It will. So in North Dakota, obviously, there's no presidential election. We don't have a governor on the top of the ticket, and neither one of our senators.
Yeah.
So, the interest is probably hyper local. Right. And because I'm in it, it feels more intense. But across the state, when you don't have those top of the ticket names, I fear the turnout's going to be a little lower. And I think, when that happens, I can only inspire somebody I can't force somebody to vote and say, here are the issues, here's how I've performed, but it's up to you to go vote.
Yeah.
I hope that this has enough attention to get a lot of people out in District 5 to vote. There are 2 Democrats, as I understand, running for the House. I don't think they have a Senate candidate. I've talked to, as I mentioned, a handful of people that have said, I would love to one day, but timing's not good now. We do have a couple that have expressed interest and not said no.
Okay.
But we have a tight time frame here.
Right.
So District 5 is going to have our convention on Good Friday.
Okay.
Everything's due into the Secretary of State by 4:00 that following Monday.
Okay.
So we have a couple routes. You can get signatures, and that's what you're seeing statewide candidates do. Or you could go to your convention and ask for the nomination.
Right.
What happens if you go to the convention and you bring 20 supporters and someone else that you've never seen walks in the door and brings 30?
Yeah.
That could happen.
You have a weekend to get this figured out.
Yeah. So it makes sense to get the signatures now.
Right. Yep.
As Plan B.
Yep. Makes sense. Yep. Very good. There. You mentioned interest, and a question that I have, and it kind of maybe segues into the next topic, but do you think with the amount of interest and attention that the GOP just throughout the state of North Dakota is getting right now, they're definitely keeping the news agencies busy with some headlines. Do you think that's going to increase voter turnout at all in an off year? Because I understand that you don't have those big names, but does that increase voter turnout potentially?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think if we're going to call what's happening in the Republican, in the news headlines right now, the divide between two groups,
Yep.
I think both groups are still going to vote.
Right. Yep.
I don't think they're going to stay home.
Right.
I think the turnout's going to be what it is in an off year, every 4 years outside of the governor.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be similar, but there's going to be a lot more tension up to, the primaries in June. And then my gut is that our party will coalesce around who wins in June. Mm-hmm. And naturally things will heal as we get to November.
Yep.
For the most part.
Right. Yeah.
But we're still dealing with humans.
Yep. Yep. It'll be healed. Maybe I'll use the word Band-Aid. The Band-Aid will be on for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we go through it again.
Yeah.
And part of that is good. And I want to talk about it more in depth. We're going to go to a quick 60-second break, and then we'll be back right after that.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned operator drone services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned operator drone services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate your operations. Yes, pun intended.
Maybe. I'm messing it all up right now. All right, we're back. I messed it up today, so sorry about that. But we're back, and we're going to continue this conversation that we're having about this stuff going on at the state. Obviously, there was a news article that came out earlier this week saying that the incumbent candidates for the Republicans is not going to be attending the convention. Kind of an unprecedented thing. It's kind of this. It feels like coming to the surface, this battle, that has been under the surface, but has been there. It's been noised abroad. We've heard about it, but it's just always been under the surface between what some have termed, and you can go and correct this term, but some have termed as basically your grassroots versus establishment. That's kind of the two sides that people have tried to pit, and you can correct that and maybe add more insight to that.
I've called a couple people on both sides, and I've said, I'm going to ask you just an odd question.
Right.
What am I?
Yeah.
Like, am I establishment because I've been there?
Right.
Am I grassroots because of how my vote? Like, what am I? I don't know.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, I saw in your pod a couple days ago, I know that you had a question, or others, about why is the governor not coming?
Right.
Not only is he in a wedding, he's the best man.
Okay, gotcha.
And I confirmed that with him. Kelly, I want to make sure that you're not just going to a wedding and you're sitting in back and you're going to be the life of the party when you walk in as the governor.
Yeah.
He's the best man.
I see.
And I confirmed today that in the middle of October, the NDGOP signed the contract with the All Seasons Arena.
I see.
So let's go back to the middle of October. The decision was made to be in Minot and book the venue and the dates. And I know there was some discussion about when to have the convention in Minot that had to do with, we can't do it during the State B boys basketball tournament. That's the largest event that happens annually, or travel event in North Dakota.
Right.
You can't host a convention and bring 1,000 people to Minot when the State B is happening.
Yep.
And that starts a week from today.
Okay.
So my understanding is they decided on the location and the date mid-October, and then put that out in November and December.
Yep.
If the governor is the best man in his buddy's wedding, I suspect he was asked and knew that he was going to be in the wedding because it takes longer than 4 months to plan a wedding.
Yeah.
So I don't know this for sure, but I think he committed to the wedding before the decision was made to come to Minot and the dates.
I see.
Just makes sense to me.
Yep. Makes sense. Yeah, we did an interview with Chair Matthew Simon, October 22nd of last year. At that point, he said, got news, but can't share it yet. So it was still hammering out.
Yeah, I think it was mid-October when they had the agreement, and they hadn't published it yet.
Right, yep.
I understand that. I mean, that happens. You book a venue, and then you announce it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so gives the governor an out. And is this? And I should have done research on this, and I'll do my research really fast. But it seems like the convention dates are a little bit different than normal.
Yeah, it seems to me the conventions have been earlier in March. Mm-hmm. It always felt like it was revolving around high school tournaments. Hockey is the end of February, and you get to the end of March, and you've got basketball.
Yeah,
with the 4 different classes, but there are 3 different classes, but boys and girls. But you've got you've just got a lot going on in North Dakota in March. It always felt to me like it was earlier in March.
Yep.
But if you pick Minot as the venue, you're subject to the All Seasons Arena schedule too.
Right. Yep.
So, it's not easy to pick that stuff. That's why you do it so far in advance.
Yeah.
And you wait to announce it to the public, so you got a confirmation.
Right. And I'm pulling up, and for 2024, it was a little bit later. I guess it was April 5th and 6th. But still, I remember it being on not on a last weekend or whatever. And that makes a big deal when you're planning a wedding, because you can even be like, well, normally it's this weekend, so we should be good or whatever. So either way, like you're saying, all these dates that are going around. The Chair Simon mentioned that some of the others, so Governor Armstrong, he has his deal going on, but some of the others could have been part of planning committees and stuff like that that's going on. And they're also electing not to. It seems like it's kind of just a push by the whole group, whatever you're going to term them, of deciding not to come. Is this something that you, like, as your representative, you're in your district, is this something that you're concerned about? Are you going to be at the convention?
I'll be there.
You'll be at the convention. Yep. So is this something that you're concerned about with potentially these state candidates not coming?
I wish we were all, I wish we were all on the same page all the time. I told somebody yesterday I liken this to the Harlem Globetrotters in their heyday, and they're really good.
Right.
And then some of them retire, and you get some of the new guys that are on the team that play basketball differently.
Right.
And I'm making this up, but it's an analogy that makes sense. So you get the veterans on the team that have said, we built this team.
Right.
And you get the new guys that say, but we play basketball differently. Mm-hmm. And when that fighting happens between the teammates, the Washington Generals ultimately win a game.
I see. Yep.
And that's what I fear.
Right.
We can have our internal fighting up to the point that it affects North Dakota.
Yeah.
And the purpose of a political party is to win elections.
Right.
As far as the other statewide electeds, I think there's a separation. There's the executive committee, which the House Majority Leader and Senate Majority Leader and Governor are part of that executive committee by their nature. And then there's other committees. The planning committee, I don't think, included the statewide. I may be wrong about that. But it isn't just that the statewides that have chosen not to go to the convention are just going to the primary. I think it's easier to go to the convention. Mm-hmm. A 15-minute speech and an endorsement. Yeah. They have to go out and get signatures. Right. And they're doing it across the state. So it's not the easy road to just say, I am the incumbent, put me on the ballot. You have to go get there. Yeah. The easier way to do it is the convention.
Right. For sure. So do you think it goes and leads into the bigger question that has come up a lot in recent years is, should the primary system in North Dakota change? Because it feels like potentially the most likely what we're going to see is those state figures will not go to the convention. They'll go to the primaries. They'll win. They'll put in the work. They'll go to the primaries. They'll win. And the people that are endorsed at the convention will be endorsed candidates, but they're probably going to lose in the election. Does that kind of lower the value of the convention, or how do you see this?
Well, it depends on your perspective and which side you support. I mean, does it lower it? It could. Certainly it could. So that means you have to increase the value of the convention and make that more palatable and appeal to more people. And it was 4 years ago. We had, what did we have, almost 2,000 people.
That's record.
So it isn't like this is, I mean, this is recent, but 2,000 people participating in a convention 4 years ago is pretty high. Yeah. I think that, again, this legislative cycle, if I'm back, the Government and Veterans Affairs Committee likely will hear 2 bills like they did last time. Yeah. One was do away with the primary, and one was do away with the convention, essentially. Yep. Neither one of them passed.
Right. But the convention one was closer, I believe.
Yeah, but I mean, that's one hearing in a committee. I mean, it still has to go through the whole process. Yep. So I think we're probably going to see that again. Yeah. I don't know where it's going to go.
Right, yeah. What a time to be in politics.
It's always what a time. There's always something. You think back, and one of the bills we hadn't talked about was continued flood protection.
Okay.
We're going to be 20 years outside that flood and still dealing with it.
Right.
That went from $1 billion issue at the time to 1.8, and we're still not done.
Yeah.
So, what a time. There's always something. And that one, I remember back thinking, what a dark time it felt like.
Right.
And we're going to revisit it again in 2027. It's just not over.
Yeah. That is very crazy. One last question on the convention stuff, and then I actually want to ask you a flood question that is going to be totally out of left field, so I apologize about that. For the convention, let's see. It's in Minot. It's going to be lesser attended. Typically, that's what it is. But overall, do you think that this is still going to be a good showing for the party? And it's going is the Republican Party in trouble in North Dakota? Basically, is what it comes down to.
So here's a situation that I think is that's not being talked about a lot, and I don't want to become the lightning rod here, but it might happen anyway.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, because this is going to come up. So the rules of the convention are that you can't nominate from the floor.
Yeah. Right.
But there's a handful of office holders that aren't going to be there, and so do they decide to amend the rules or suspend the rules and allow for a nomination from the floor, so that leaving the convention you have a nominee, for instance, for an office,
right?
Or do you say we're going to nominate the candidate that's not here, and then change those rules because they didn't pay the registration fee to be like
right?
And I think that's being discussed.
Yeah.
There isn't a full win-win there. That could be a problem regardless of the decision that's made. So that one I'm looking at to really say, well, how's the convention going to be conducted?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, what's the platform going to look like coming out of it? And what are the rules that they implemented when they were there?
Right.
I don't know those answers yet, and that's why I'm going.
Yeah, that's fair. A question that comes up from a member, and I think it's a fair question. I think there's a good answer for it too. I think there was a shakeup within districts and delegates, so much so that incumbents are not confident they will win endorsement. So that's the reason why they're not coming, which is a good point of view in that there's a lot of grassroots that are coming as delegates, but they would have to be filed. Like, this is part of the problem that you just mentioned, though. You can't just nominate someone from the floor.
So we're talking about the statewide candidates.
Yeah.
Okay. My understanding is that many of those statewide candidates have gone to a lot of these district conventions. I don't know if what they're seeing is a lack of support or a lot of support. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Me either.
So to answer that, I think you almost put one of those candidates on the spot and say, "What have you experienced?"
Yeah. Right. Yep. For sure. But the rules wouldn't even allow for that. And that's
each district has different rules too.
But at the convention, at the state convention, as far as endorsing a candidate, the rules wouldn't allow for them to endorse a different candidate, right? Because like you just mentioned, and that's that they changed the rules,
right?
Specifically for
the rules,
specifically for that.
Yeah, and I've seen this happen at the national level.
Yeah,
I watched the rules when Donald Trump was competing against Ted Cruz in Cleveland in 2016.
Yeah,
some of the rules were changed the day before the vote was taken.
I see.
So it depends on what happens with the rules and who's there to vote on them.
Very good. One last question, I think, or at least one last topic, maybe a couple follow-ups on it. Flood control. This is something that comes up. You mentioned it already. Minot's in it. Like, you're in the middle of the fray. It's hard to get out of it. A sentiment that comes up consistently, and I think it's people on both sides of this one. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts are on it. Being in Bismarck, funding for flood control in Minot, we get help from the state every biennium. Some people say Minot doesn't have good representation, not as far as our actual representatives, maybe that too, but as far as getting those dollars to Minot. Some say that it doesn't matter, the state's going to continue to give money. As you're in Bismarck working with it, you have good relationships down there. What's your viewpoint of that?
I'll answer it from two different perspectives.
Yep.
From the legislative perspective, with Representative Fisher going over to the Senate, and I'm going to presume he's going to win because right now he's unopposed.
Yep.
There's 94 members in the House, and I will be the only Minot guy, only Minot representative on appropriations. And the water funding comes through my subdivision.
Yeah.
We gave more money up front to Fargo. We gave a little money to Bismarck. We increased the original request that came from Minot, but I don't think it was enough. Mm-hmm. That was a constant battle and a constant fight that we're dealing with water projects all across the state.
Right.
And it's hard to convince somebody from the northeast part of North Dakota that this project in Minot isn't done.
I see.
We've been hearing this every 2 years.
Yeah.
Get it done. We're like, well, we need more money because of inflation or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing to do.
I see.
But I'll also say that when the phone call is made to Minot, when I say, I need a delegation here to testify.
Right.
I need you to present. Mm-hmm. I need you to be upfront about what we can afford. What is our local match?
Right.
What's our max for our local match?
Yeah.
What can we actually get done in the next 2 years? And then ask for that money.
Right.
They show up every time.
Gotcha.
And that's something that the people from Minot don't see, but it should appreciate. Mm-hmm. The ability to rally the people from Minot to get down and say, this is important. And it happens with Minot State too, by the way, and it happens with Trinity.
I see. Yep.
We make the call and they show up. And
That's
it
good.
doesn't matter if it's 20 below and icy.
Right.
Minot comes to testify.
That's good.
So,
That
but
answers
that's
it well.
something you don't see very often.
Right. Okay.
And you
Very
don't
good.
see it from other communities.
That's huge then. That's huge. Very good. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We talked about pretty much everything. I'm sure there's a ton that we didn't talk about though.
Well, I'll come back if you want to.
Sounds good.
There are some other things that I think are going to come up that we need to discuss.
It'll be good for sure. Thank you to everyone that tuned in to watch this episode of Minot Talk here at the Dakotan. We're live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.